This video will demonstrate how to properly remove and reinstall the bypass on a Xerox AltaLink C8170 machine. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is go to the side of the machine to access the bypass tray and door A. Alright, so the very first thing you're going to want to do is lift the bypass tray up, and down in the lower left corner you're going to see a little white plate here, and you're going to want to remove this one screw to access the cord underneath. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is unplug this cord here, and later on in the video you're going to see we're going to run it back through the bypass. And that's the very last thing we're going to do with the bypass on the outside of the machine. Everything else is going to require us to open up door A to access the inner part of the bypass here. The very first thing you're going to want to do when you open up door A is remove all of the black clips that hold the retainers together for the door. So they're going to look like this, and there's going to be 4 of them. So you can either take a pair of needle nose pliers or a flathead screwdriver to get in there and safely remove these. But there's going to be 1 here. There's going to be 1 back here. There's going to be 1 down here on this white one. And then there's going to be 1 up here on the silver one. And then once you have door A open horizontally so you have full access, you're going to want to move to the corner here right by the bypass motor. And you're going to want to look for this black plate, and you're going to want to remove this screw. All right, and then once that plate is removed, you're going to want to unplug this wire and this wire. And you just should be able to just pull them out like that. All right. Once those 2 wires are unplugged, you're going to want to remove this screw and this screw so this entire black piece comes off. And then once that black piece is fully removed, the next thing you're going to want to do is locate the bypass unit here, and you're going to want to remove 5 screws. 1 in there, 1 down there, then you're going to want to flip this fully up. You're going to see 1, 2, and 3 for a total of 5 screws that you're going to take off. And then once those 5 screws are removed from the bypass, you're going to want to take off this piece here with the 2 white rollers. And you're going to want to slide it forward. And then this comes off all as one piece. And if for some reason this roller pops off, it pops right back on with the little clips there. All right, and then the final step of removing the old bypass, what you're going to want to do is this entire unit here, it should be very loose to the touch. You're going to want to angle it up, and then it should slide right out. And it should just pull out in all one piece, just like so, with the entire motor unit attached. And then what we're going to do in order to put the bypass back into the machine is you're going to lift this black part up, and in the hole where the bypass came out, we're going to slide it back in. And make sure to kind of angle the bypass tray so it slides back in like flush like that. And then you're going to want to make sure that all 5 of those screw holes are lined up where they were in the first place. Alrighty, and then once you properly angle it, it should look flush like this. And then all of your screw holes will be lined back up. So you'll have the 1, the 2, 3, and then you'll lift up this black part, 4, and then 5 will be right there. And then once you make sure those are all lined up, you're going to want to reinsert those 5 screws back into the bypass unit so it doesn't shift when you put the rest of the parts back on. The very next thing you're going to want to do is locate this piece from earlier with the white rollers. And what you're going to look for is this notch, this tab, this notch, this tab. So what you're going to want to do is line up those tabs with one another, and then it should just slide back in there. It should have a little bit of play to it, but this is what it should look like. The white roller, the big white roller, should be against the bypass here. And then once that piece is reattached, you're going to want to find this black piece, and then you're going to want to line it up with that screw hole and that little tab, and that screw hole and that tab. All right, once that piece is securely back on, you're going to want to put your 2 screws back in there. 1, 2. All right, and then next you're going to want to find those 2 plugs from earlier, the small and the big, and you're going to want to reconnect these 2 cords to each other. And then once those 2 cords are plugged back in, you're going to want to make sure they're tucked into this little black casing here. And you're going to find this piece from earlier, and you're going to line it up with the screw hole so that it should line up just like so. And you're going to put your 1 screw into there. And then once your entire bypass assembly and the tracks surrounding it are reassembled back together, what we're going to do is work on reassembling the harnesses for the door A. So what you're going to look for is this white bracket, the silver bracket here, this spring bracket here, and then this elastic bracket here. Once you've gotten familiar on where all the brackets are that you need to reattach, you're going to want to make sure that your bypass tray itself is clicked into the door so that all of the bracket points are visible. So this is probably the trickiest part. You're going to want to hold the door about halfway up to properly reattach your brackets. All right, and then once you're in position, you're going to line up this hole with this one up to that piece in there. So that should secure that part of the door. And then you're going to look here for this bracket and this one. You're going to slide those back together like so. And once you're done with this half, you're going to get those black clips and put them on each one to secure this half of the door. And then this is what it looks like once your black clips are back on the brackets. One on the end there of the white and one in the middle there of the silver. All right, and then the next thing we're going to want to do is move to the other side. You're going to locate the spring bracket here, and be careful with your fingers on this one because it will snap back and get you. But you're going to want to extend it to the point where you get onto that big silver peg, and then you're going to want to reattach this one to this guy here and reattach your black clips. And then once you are all done, black clip there, and then black clip on the outside here. And then once you are all done on the inside, you can close door A, just like so. And then the next step is going to be plugging back in this cord here. And then once your wire is plugged back in, you're going to want to make sure that the cord is kind of tucked into the corner here so you can fit your white cover. This one here, you're going to want to make sure the tab goes into that hole there. You should be able to just slide it over, slide it in, and then that tab and that hole should match up where you're going to put your screw. And then this is what the final product will look like. You can slide your bypass tray back down and make sure it clicks in. And that is how we replace the bypass tray on the Xerox AltaLink C8170 machines.